What's going on, guys? It's Austin here with another chapter of Chainsaw Man chapter 126. This is just a chapter that probably put a lot of us in our feelings, and finally we get a look at Denji's psyche and just how much he's grown since the last time we saw him in part 1. But another recap, guys, let's cut our way into chapter 126 of Chainsaw Man. The chapter starts off with Denji and the Falling Devil continuing their fight that they started in the last chapter, and the Falling Devil reveals to Chainsaw Man that she doesn't intend on killing any more humans, once again highlighting and giving the Falling Devil a bit more humanity compared to the other devils, since she is actually trying to use her words instead of violence to end this conflict. And it probably would have worked until the Falling Devil mentions that she was tasked with capturing Asumitaka and feeding her to the devils in hell, which leaves Denji confused because we as the readers know about Asa and her situation with Yoru, but Denji has been kept in the dark from Nayuta and Yoshida and still thinks that Asa is just a regular high school girl, even though, I mean, it's pretty obvious to everyone else that she's been contracted with the War Devil. And one of the funniest moments of the chapter is when Denji says, well, that's more than a reason for me to attack you, and tells the Falling Devil to lay his hands off his ex-potential girlfriend. And as Denji is about to attack the Falling Devil, we finally get to see Denji fall into his own trauma, and we get a brief glimpse of power seconds before she got blasted by Makima and Aki being possessed by the Gun Devil and becoming the Gun Fiend who Denji had to put down to become the hero that he's known as Chainsaw Man. So yeah, it pretty much confirms that Denji does have some level of PTSD and trauma from the events of part 1, and I know a lot of people will say, well, Austin didn't get over his trauma at the end of part 1, which revealed that he killed his father, and I mean, he kinda did, but not really. It was more like power came back to life to give him the will to live, and then Denji's past or how he feels about it is just never brought up again. That's why I always say that the reveal that Denji killed his father was probably the weakest reveal in all of Chainsaw Man, just because it came out of nowhere and it really wasn't ever addressed again. That is because Denji as a character isn't one to confront his past or even tries to get over it. He's just someone who really does seem to live in a moment, and any resentment or the truth of a situation is just something that he tries to cover up or just not to think about. Which, if you look at his background of just living in severe poverty and basically being a slave to the Yakuza, being stuck in a debt trap that his father put him in, it does start to make a little bit more sense why he's like that. Just because he didn't have the time to worry about his future or his past, because if he didn't focus on the goals in the present, he never would have been able to make it up to the point that he has in part 2. That's why when Yoshida asked Denji why he didn't remember him from the events of part 1, he's just trying to distance himself from the memories that he made in part 1 as a way to cope with the trauma that he's probably just been experiencing for the last 9 months since the time skip at the end of part 1. And as Denji is flying in the air, the Falling Devil is going to finally go out and hunt Asa by following her scent, similar to how Makima would identify humans. And we see Denji drop from the sky and split the Falling Devil in half. And to counter the Falling Devil's mind manipulation, Denji cuts his own brain. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, he literally cuts his own brain so he wouldn't have to think about Aki and Power's deaths. Rather depressing and incredibly disturbing. The fact that he had the will to move and to be able to perform the action shows how strong Denji mentally is compared to how he was in part 1. And apparently it's implied it isn't the first time that he's done something like this since the gap between part 1 and 2, because he's been fighting devils that he's gone up against that could manipulate his mind, and that's just a tactic he chose to actually counter it. And when you think about it, given the fact that Denji is literally can't die, it does make a lot of sense for him to do, and he's done similar things in the past. Like when he was fighting Santa Claus, after she ate the Darkness Devil flesh, he actually set himself on fire to have a better chance at beating her. Now doing this, of course, makes Denji into a walking buffoon, talking about eating corn dogs from France, which, fun fact, corn dogs actually originate from the United States. And Denji attempts to eat the Falling Devil, mistaking her for a corn dog. Now, what is interesting are two things. One is, instead of the Falling Devil panicking at Chainsaw Man eating her, she just says that she'd rather experience the situation firsthand. which is really strange because Chainsaw Man, or at least Pochita in his full Chainsaw Man form, is known for the ability that is the reason like the most of the devils are afraid of Chainsaw Man. It's the fact of the matter that when he eats them, he erases their names from existence. And the Falling Devil doesn't recognize Denji as the real Chainsaw Man, or at least she doesn't seem familiar with the real Chainsaw Man at all, which given Pochita's reputation in hell, I kinda find hard to believe. I mean, the Falling Devil would have to be living under a rock not to know about him. Now the most logical explanation I can think of is because she's a primal devil and given her strength, while the Chainsaw Devil may seem like a boogeyman to the lesser devils, to stronger devils like the Horsemen and the Weapon Devils, his name and what he did and what he stood for probably didn't mean much to them because they never thought it would have been a possibility for Pochita to defeat them and eat them in the first place. Or Chainsaw Man's ability of erasure isn't as well known as we all thought it would be, which makes sense because the only devils that seemed to be aware of it were the 4 horsemen who witnessed what happened, and some of them who were literally almost eaten by Pochita. And the second reason as to why she isn't panicking is because this isn't even her real body to begin with, because if we remember right, the Falling Devil physically manifested from the corpses of random civilians, just merging them together. So it might just be that she's controlling this body telepathically, and given her healing factor, it's possible that even if she were to be eaten, she could still come back again. As soon as the Falling Devil gets eaten by Denji, she thanks him for the experience and bursts out of his stomach, splitting him in half, just coming back again with her healing factor. And as Denji tries to go in for the head, she just goes on ahead and flicks him away like he's a fly, defeating him. And as she flies away like Mary Poppins, she calls Denji ugly and gives dibs, which I gotta be honest, which is a really funny moment. And as Denji is lying there down for the count, we see a mysterious figure approach Denji, cut his hand, and feeds him some of his blood to heal him, and says to Denji he still needs Chainsaw Man to fight. And we don't see his face, all we get to see is his arm and the shoes that he has on his feet. And just going by his arm, it could be a school uniform, potentially someone in public safety. Because we did only see the Falling Devil kill one of the Devil Hunters that was sniping at her last chapter, and we never saw the other ones die except for one, so there's always that possibility that one of them could be alive and could be feeding Denji the blood. And as far as characters we've seen so far in the story, only a few of them actually wear white Air Force Ones. I mean, Kobani could be one of these and just the most likely, but I just can't imagine why she would ever go back to being a devil hunter after the event of part 1. Like, I don't think there's any amount of money they could offer to the point where she would be like, yeah, sure, I will gladly come back. But a lot of people do say that we don't know what Kobani's contract was. Now, believe me guys, if she were contracted with the Death Devil, Makima would have known immediately and would have been hell-bent on killing Kobani or just controlling Kobani to know about the whereabouts of the Death Devil. The only other character that we've been introduced so far that has been having white sneakers in part 2 besides Denji is Brobini, and just seeing how he reacted under the pressure in the aquarium, there's no way he would stick around during the entire fight, let alone sound as confident as they sound in this panel, unless he secretly has that dog in him, man. The final panel we get is Asa, who is still under the effects of the Fallen Devil, given that she's actually upside down, with her looking in fear, saying that the Fallen Devil found them. End of chapter, no break next week. So this is interesting because it's looking like Asa and Yuru actually didn't settle their differences at all. And I'm not going to lie, I figured during Denji's fight with the Falling Devil, it would have gone on for at least another chapter to give time for Asa and Yuru to kind of just get things worked out between the two of them, and he would have just stepped in to come and save Denji. And it looks like it's going to be the opposite. Denji is going to have to save Asa because Asa and Yuru right now are just sitting ducks. Like, I really don't see any way they can both get out of the situation. I mean, even trying to fight it out, we've seen normal weapons have no effect on the Falling Devil. Currently, there really isn't anything that Asa can make a weapon out of that would have value to her or she would feel guilty about, where you could say maybe it could potentially damage the falling devil. I mean, I guess she could pull Sakura and make a weapon out of her hair. I mean, she does still have the nail knife that she made last chapter to cut it off. So, I mean, that is a possibility. But I honestly really have no idea what could happen next chapter. I mean, it really is up in the air. What is most likely to happen at this point is we might end up going back to hell, and by the end of the fight, Denji might actually end up sacrificing himself and ends up getting trapped in hell to save everyone from the falling devil. And when you think about it, it makes sense because it gives Fujimoto a way to write Denji out of the story without killing him off, to focus on Asa and Yoru, who, like it or not, are the main characters of part 2 of Chainsaw Man. And when the time comes to bring Denji back, when the stakes become really high, I mean, he could always do it towards the end of part 2. But let me know what you guys think is going to happen in the next chapter of Chainsaw Man in the comment section. If you liked the video, drop a like and subscribe for more Chainsaw Man content.